Sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We apologize for being a little bit back this morning, as I did find out this morning that Papa Joe, who's typically with us every single Thursday, was in a car accident last night. And in that car accident, he has been put in the hospital. He is doing okay, by the grace of God, so he is doing okay. But he's in the hospital this morning, and so I just wanted to send my love and my appreciation and my well wishes to PJ, and to his brother-in-law as well, who was also in the car, and to everybody else that was involved. I pray and I hope that everybody gets well and stays well by the grace of God in Jesus' most precious name. And in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. God, life doesn't always go the way we want it to go. It doesn't always do what we want it to do. And sometimes it gets hard. A lot of times it gets hard, and it gets to a point where we feel like we can't be ourselves, and we feel like we can't just do simple things and just get by and whatnot. And sometimes we feel like we just can't get ahead. Please be with us today and every day as we struggle through questions that we can't answer and things that we don't know and unfortunate situations that happen. Help us to be strong. Help us to be ourselves. Help us to focus on our faith and focus on our belief. Trust you and love you, that you will guide us in every small and big thing, and you will guard us in every small and big thing as well. And God, may you please help for Papa Joe and Bruce and everybody involved to have a full and speedy recovery, to be well and stay well. In Jesus' most precious name, I pray to you, my Lord. May we be healthy, safe, happy, and filled with all of your most precious gifts. Today, tonight, and so on. And may they be long, and may they be fun, and may they go by slowly. I love you, God, with all that I am. So, Papa Joe, this show, like so many of them, is for you. Let's do this. Love you, big guy. So, with that being said, let's get into Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, hanging out with you where sports truly meets that thing called life. I can't thank you enough for being here every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So we're having some fun here this morning. We got a lot of great stuff coming up. In hour number one, we're going to do our mock draft inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. We're going to have our mock draft for the 2023 NFL Draft's first round. We're going to do that. And then in hour number two, Ross is going to join me. So it'll be Ross and I, a.k.a. Arson and Coke, are going to be taking a look at the Aaron Rodgers trade to his New York Jets. We'll talk about so many different topics that have to do with that and with the Jets, and great stuff coming up here with Ross Turetsky as always. So can't thank him enough for being a part of the show. Very excited to be able to share the broadcast with him and share the airwaves with him once again. Always love having Ross on the show. So a lot of good stuff coming up here where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and we thank you so much for being here on the show every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And as I said before, starting a little bit back this morning with the news of Papa Joe and his relative being in a car accident. So just keep saying your prayers, and if it does anything for you, in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Just know that life is truly, truly precious, truly precious. And, you know, if it did anything for me today, it reminded me of the importance of life, the sanctity of life, and to stop complaining about things that don't matter and stop caring about people that want to hurt you. So let's have a great day together. Let's have a great draft day together. Go and watch Kevin Costner in the movie Draft Day. Let's do that together, and let's have some fun. So welcome to the broadcast. Happy to be here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora with all of you fantastic people. It is mock draft time. how do you not bop to that? I mean, seriously. So how do you not? I mean, I'm in the studio like, so I mean, how do you not enjoy that type of? I don't know. That music was just that's some good stuff right there. That got me going here in the studio this morning. So I hope you're going. I hope you're ready. I hope you're excited. We're gonna mock draft this thing up, and we're gonna have some fun with the first round of this year's NFL draft. So very much looking forward to drafting with y'all here this morning and having a great time here where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So let's have some fun. Let's enjoy it. And we're going to start things off with the first pick in this year's NFL draft coming to you on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Now, looking at this, I don't feel like there's any sure, I feel pretty good about this pick, but I don't think anything is 100%. You know, in other drafts where it's like, okay, this is what's going to happen. You know, you look a couple of years ago to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you thought, okay, guys, don't botch this thing. You know who the first pick is. Just make the first pick, and let's move on with our lives. So, you know, this year, it just feels a little bit different. And there's no clear-cut guy that I think is like, that's it, it's surefire. But I am going to say that the one I feel pretty good about as the first pick in this year's NFL draft, and the first pick in my mock draft, is going to be Mr. Bryce Young. So Bryce Young, quarterback, going to the Carolina Panthers, who traded up to bring him in. I'm going to go with Bryce Young as my first pick, and that I believe the Panthers will take in this year's NFL draft. The next pick that we have up in this thing, I would have to say, for the next one, team needs-wise, the Houston Texans, they need a lot of things. You know, people say they need a quarterback. Davis Mills has been serviceable, and they got Davis Mills a couple of years ago in the third round out of Stanford, and I don't know why people dog this guy as much as they do. I mean, I know he wasn't like a household name and whatnot, but still, you know, Davis Mills, we look at him, 2021 round 3, pick 67. He's played 2 seasons for the Texans. He had a 66.8% completion percentage in 2021-22, 2,664 yards, 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Last season, 61% completion percentage, over 3,100 yards, 17 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. So the interceptions are an issue, obviously. But the completion percentage looking pretty good and, you know, being a serviceable guy. And I think Houston's got a lot of problems, which is why, you know, I feel like Houston could go to a lot of different areas here. They could go defensive line, in my opinion, at this pick. But I think their fans might go nuts on them if they do. You know, you got to look at the coaching, and you have to think about, okay, who's building toward the future? Where are they going here? And so, you know, for me, I think the Houston Texans, this is a tough pick. It really is. Because like I said, I think that they could go defensive line or they could go quarterback here. And ultimately, you know, with DeMeco Ryans being in there, he wants to put, you know, his kind of flavor on this thing. And so do you go CJ Stroud, or do you go to the defensive side of the ball and look at a Will Anderson potentially? You know, that's the question of this. And so, I mean, for me, this pick is probably going to go down to the wire, because I think it's a difficult pick for me. And so I would have to say, you know, Jalen Carter, Will Anderson Jr., both of those guys are going to be here, and CJ Stroud. So, you know what? I'm going to say Stroud. I'm going to go with the quarterback here. But it's a pick that I'm telling you right now, this could go defensive line. I think about like a la a few years ago when they went, I believe, Mario Williams back in the day, and people lost their minds over this because they're like, how could he go for that? You know, how could they do that to, you know, the team and whatnot, and why would they make that pick? But, you know, ultimately, listen, you got to make some you got to make some decisions there. They're not easy decisions to make, and when you make those decisions, you got to be prepared for, good, bad, or indifferent. People want a quarterback, and people get excited about a quarterback even sometimes when you don't even need one. But ultimately, I'm going to go with C.J. Stroud here, but I think that this pick could be a defensive lineman. I really do. The next pick here that I'm going to pick for Arizona is going to be Will Anderson Jr. coming from Alabama, somebody that I covered. So the edge rusher I'm just going to put E for edge here, Will Anderson Jr. So I'm going to put Anderson as the third overall pick coming through to the Arizona Cardinals. For the Colts, who need a quarterback, and the Colts know that they need a quarterback, and it's been a long time since I feel like they've had somebody they can lean on. They've been going through a lot. Do they go Will Levis or do they go Anthony Richardson? I think that, they buy into the hype. I think the Colts say, okay, let's try and speed things up here, and they're going to go Richardson at pick 4. Overall, they're going to take Anthony Richardson, which takes him off the board, which leaves us with the Seattle Seahawks. And you look at the Seahawks and say, okay, well, Seattle, listen, Geno Smith worked out for them, which is fantastic. They've had the opportunity of seeing things flourish in a way that I don't think anybody anticipated. Good morning to my mom. So I don't think anybody anticipated this. And so where are we going to go with the Seahawks? And I think, ultimately for Seattle, it would make sense for them to go on the defensive side of the ball. They could go get an edge rusher, a D tackle, and whatnot. They go to that defensive line. So if it's up to me, and today in the mock draft it is, which is fun, I'm going to go with Jalen Carter of Georgia. So I'm going to have Carter D tackle. I'm going to have the D tackle come off the board here. And I'm going to put Jalen Carter in the mix of things here. So Carter is going to be there for my mock draft. And then for the Lions, their pick at number 6 overall, the Detroit Lions, well, listen, they got some issues going on. They got a bunch of guys that are either out for the entire season or out for a portion of the season for gambling. So they could go to a bunch of different places here. Now, looking to see what's going to happen, they could go and get a bunch of different things. Now, they can look in different areas here, and to see what they could do on the defensive side of the ball is going to be important. They don't have to worry about Aaron Rodgers anymore because he's not a Green Bay Packer. Chicago, Justin Fields is talented, but still figuring things out. And then Minnesota with, Kirk Cousins and seeing the fact that Minnesota's been good, but they can't seem to get over the hump and be great these last few years. So they've gotten close to being a pretty darn good team, but they haven't been a great team. And that's, listen, I'm not trying to knock them because there's a lot of teams out there that would like to just be good. But the Detroit Lions, I think they're going to go on the defensive side of the ball as well. And looking at Detroit here, in my opinion, at this next pick, there's different places they could go to here. I would say, Detroit, to me, there's a bunch of guys from Clemson, Texas Tech, Georgia. I would say Detroit here, and to make things interesting, this is why I know they use the time on the clock, because I'm using the time on the clock right now looking at this. If I'm Detroit, I'm probably going to go, well, they could go there too. And they could go wide receiver because of the issues they had. But you know what? I'll give them Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. We'll go Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. So we'll go on that side of it. We'll give them an edge rusher as well, and we'll go with Wilson. Then that puts the Raiders on the clock. Now the Raiders have Jimmy G, but do the Raiders want to get a quarterback? Now remember, it's been a while since they've had Chucky out there, John Gruden, the quarterback collector, so they don't have to go quarterback in this one. I think if I'm the Raiders, I'm looking at what's best available, what's sitting there for me right now. There's corners, you go offensive line, you could go defensive line. So I think if I'm the Raiders right now, and I'm looking at this pick early on, I could go Christian Gonzalez, keep him on the West Coast. I can go Devin Witherspoon. So I could go Deonte Banks. Let me go with Christian Gonzalez. I'm going to go with Christian Gonzalez at corner here coming out of Oregon. So Christian Gonzalez going to the Las Vegas Raiders. And the Oakland Athletics not far behind and following suit. That brings us to the Falcons at number 8. People saying the Falcons are going to take a quarterback. The Falcons drafted Desmond Ridder, folks. Don't forget about the fact that this man's going to be taking over some things and doing some things. So, I don't look at them as going after a quarterback here. I think running back would be a good thing for them to do at this position in the game. They could draft high here and take Bijan Robinson, and why the heck not? So let's go with Bijan Robinson for the Falcons coming out of this top 8 here. Bijan Robinson, the first. I know running backs typically get taken late in recent history, but I'm going to go with Bijan in this one. I don't think they need a quarterback. The Chicago Bears on the next pick, number 9 here. The Chicago Bears, they need a lot of help, okay? And I think when it comes down to it, there needs to be addressing of protecting Justin Fields. And maybe that's where they're going to look first here, in my opinion. So, you go back to this piece here and you say, okay, who's out there? And you got Peter Skoronski of Northwestern, the tackle. So I'm going to take him for Chicago and put him out there. So I'm going to put offensive tackle right here. And we're going to put Skoronski in that spot for the Chicago Bears, which leads us to the Philadelphia Eagles, who are the runners-up this year in the Super Bowl. Philadelphia Eagles, now, they could be in a position here where they could build some depth and put themselves in a good situation. So, looking at this, I think, for me, for the Philadelphia Eagles, I would probably go with, they can go corner. They can help out there. Listen, they know if they're going to go up against guys like Pat Mahomes again, they got to be ready for different things here. Some people say they need a running back. They got a lot of running backs. They can also go to the edge and look to build up their defensive line. So if we're going to do that, then I would say, let's see here. They could go Nolan Smith, and they could make that Georgia pick in the top 10, and Nolan Smith's another guy I covered. I'm going to go with Nolan Smith in this one, so I'm going to go with the edge. I'm going to go with Nolan Smith. I think that's a good pick. I think that's a splash there for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think their fans will like that, so it won't let me write an H. There we go. So Nolan Smith is going to be in the top 10 for me. That's the first 10 picks of my mock draft. We have 2 quarterbacks going in the first 2 picks, 3 going out of the first 4. We have our first defensive player being Anderson out of Alabama. Then we have Carter from Georgia going 5th to the Seahawks. A lot of defensive players being taken. Well, you have a few edge rushers here and a D tackle being taken, a corner, a running back, an offensive lineman, leaving plenty of offensive linemen for the second part of this. And we're going to be back here with picks 11 through 20 on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in our mock draft this morning, right after this.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue.
in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, hanging out with you where sports truly meets that thing called life. We are doing our mock draft here this morning, and I'm so happy to have you here and happy to have your thoughts and opinions. Make sure you send those in. If you agree or disagree with me on some of the picks that we're making here, send it in. Let me know where you're at and what you're thinking here. Happy to help and happy to discuss it, as always. So doing the mock draft here this morning in hour number 2, Ross Turetsky is going to be joining me to speak on his Jets, Aaron Rodgers, and so much more. And we call ourselves Arson and Coke, a little inside joke that we have. So having some fun with that. The first 10 picks are in my mock draft. We got a bunch of quarterbacks going, some edge rushers as well as a defensive tackle. We do have one offensive lineman off the board, one corner, and one running back here as a bunch of teams look on the defensive side of the ball besides the Falcons, Panthers, Texans, and Colts. In the next portion of my mock draft, I have the opportunity to write these into you, and I'm going to have some fun with it here. So the next pick up on the board, is the Tennessee Titans. And the Tennessee Titans, people are talking about them needing a quarterback, right? And, the thing about quarterbacks is they don't give anybody time anymore, right? Malik Willis was drafted last year, and I told you that Kenny Pickett was going to be the first off the board. Some of y'all listened to me, some of you didn't. I told you Kenny Pickett was going to be the guy. And I also talked very highly of Desmond Ridder, and Desmond Ridder was the second quarterback taken off the board. It wasn't Malik Willis. So, looking at this and the situation, taking him in the third round, so some people thought he was going to be a first rounder, and now the question is, what's he going to do? Do you transition him to another position? Do you make him kind of a wildcat guy and whatnot? What do you do? So if you're the Tennessee Titans with pick number 11, you got to look. It sounds like they're looking at quarterback right now. So do you look at Will Levis? Do you look at Hendon Hooker? Where do you go here? Now, Will Levis, here goes the numbers on these quarterbacks. So I'm going to read you Will Levis, and I'm going to read you Hendon Hooker. And I covered Hendon Hooker before he transferred over to Tennessee. So let's take a look first and foremost at Will Levis. So Will Levis, as of right now, looking at his time at Penn State and at Kentucky. When he went to Kentucky is when he became a dominant quarterback, the guy, and 66% completion percentage in 2021, 65.4 this past year, so that's good back-to-back. 2,800 plus yards in 2021, over 2,400 in 2022, 24 and 13 touchdown interception in 2021, 19 to 10 in 2022. So those are his numbers. Then we go and we look at Hendon Hooker and his statistics with Tennessee, and before that, when Hendon Hooker was the Virginia Tech quarterback. Now, he played 5 seasons, folks. So, played 5 seasons here. Well, in 2018, he was there, but no stats available for him for Virginia Tech. So, with Virginia Tech in 2019 is when he got on the field. 61% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Then in 2020 with Virginia Tech, 65.3% completion percentage, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Then with Tennessee for 2 seasons, attempting over 100 more passes per season with Tennessee in both of his seasons there. 68.2% completion percentage, 69.6% last year. So with attempting more passes, his completion percentage went up, which is always something I look to. 31-3 touchdown to interception in 2021 with Tennessee, 27-2 in 2022. And remember, he's playing in a better conference there in the SEC at the time. He is a running quarterback as well. So if you were building your team toward Malik Willis and you wanted a guy who's a double threat guy, then it's an inside joke about Jim Carrey. But if you wanted something like that, then it would make sense to go with Hendon Hooker, right? Say, okay, we swung, we missed, but we liked what we thought we were going to get in Malik Willis, so maybe we can get that in Hendon Hooker. Will Levis, I'm not sold. So if I'm the Titans, I would take Hendon Hooker if I'm going to take a quarterback. So let's go with Hendon Hooker here with the Tennessee Titans. And again, I'm sad about this situation for Malik Willis. I got to see him play a couple times inside of the dome for Liberty. So I'm going to go with Hendon Hooker here. But I think the Titans could go in a lot of different places there. I think they could go corner there as well. The Houston Texans, I had them take C.J. Stroud, so they're not taking Will Levis here. And if they took Will Levis, I feel like what's the difference between him and Davis Mills? I don't know if that's necessarily a step up or down or whatever. So, I just don't see the Will Levis draft pick to the Texans if you already have Davis Mills. So the Texans are now on the clock. They, like I said, need a bunch. They got a new coach at DeMeco Ryans, and they need a lot of help here. So where did the Houston Texans go? Well, you drafted a quarterback, so maybe it's time for you to stay offensive and go get yourself a nice wide receiver. And Jackson Smith and Jigba, you could take him. So I'm going to have him taking Jackson Smith here out of Ohio State with their pick. So the first wide receiver off the board, and with a long last name, but a very unique first name and how he spells Jackson. So I'm going to put Jackson there as the pick for the Texans. For the Packers at number 13, who got the 13th pick from the Jets, swapped with them in the first round, which I think we'll talk about it with Ross in the second hour. I think this is great for the Jets. You get Aaron Rodgers and you only move down 2 picks and you get to pick in the first round. How do you miss? You don't. That's how I look at it. So with the Green Bay Packers on the clock, you think, okay, well, you got Jordan Love now. You got to protect Mr. Jordan Love. So what are you going to do with those offensive linemen? Well, you got Paris Johnson Jr., who's there. I'm going to take the tackle out of OHIO. Ohio State, here's the thing. I'm not sold on Ohio State in the college football playoff, but when it comes to individual talent going to the NFL, when you see that, you believe, okay, individually, they could go there and do some good things. So I'm going to go with, I'm just not sold on them being better than some of those other teams out there, and they haven't been, and they've gotten an unfair advantage. But individually, I think Ohio State players, they definitely bring something to the fray. I just don't appreciate where they're getting put in a situation where, people are giving them an unfair advantage as a team and as a conference when it comes to the Big Ten. But individually, I like them. Paris Johnson Jr., we'll go with that, the tackle. The Patriots, they said, the Patriots are going to take a quarterback. Oh, Patriots could take a quarterback. Why don't the Patriots? And I'm sitting here going, why would the Patriots want to take quarterback? Okay, you got Mac Jones, and, you're trying to build around him. There's other guys they can go and try and take as well, but I mean, do the Patriots really need to go out and do something like that, or should they go out and protect him? So, I think for the Patriots, for me, you could go to a few different areas, I think is safe to say here. And, you could go at wide receiver. I think they need some wide receiver help, but they typically don't draft high. And listen, when it comes to skill players, running backs, and wide receivers, and when they did that, when they drafted high for N'Keal Harry, it didn't work out at wide receiver. When they drafted high for Sony Michel at running back, that didn't work out. So maybe they'll stay away from it and stay with the offensive line, and we'll see a run on offensive linemen here. So if it was up to me in this one, and right now it is, Broderick Jones is up there. Darnell Wright is as well. Anton Harrison. Let's go with Broderick Jones out of Georgia. How do you swing and miss with an offensive tackle out of the Bulldog Den? So I'm going to go with Broderick Jones, offensive tackle out of Georgia here to the New England Patriots, which puts the Jets on the clock. And the New York Jets, I mean, they need offensive line help too, don't they? So, I think that, again, we're going to continue to see a run on offensive linemen and protecting the quarterback. So The next guy up is Darnell Wright out of Tennessee, and close behind Anton Harrison. So let's give him Darnell Wright from Tennessee, another offensive tackle off the board. So we'll go with Darnell Wright here to the New York Jets at 15, the pick that they traded down to get Aaron Rodgers. And that brings us to the Commanders at 16 overall. Now, the Commanders are another franchise where you're sitting here saying they need a lot, okay? Now, I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback. Caleb Williams comes out next year. I don't see him drafting a quarterback right now. That's not where I think this team is going to go. So I don't think it's going to be a quarterback at all. And I know that they've brought in some Penn State guys in the past. So looking at this and looking at, what's available. Now you have Devin Witherspoon, a corner out of Illinois. Will Levis is there. I don't think they take him. Dalton Kincaid. This is an enticing pick, in my opinion, for the Commanders and at number 16 overall. And the reason why I say it's enticing is that the Commanders don't have a tight end that they can lean on right now, right? Logan Thomas hasn't stayed healthy, and guys before that, struggled to stay healthy as well. So they could be advantageous here. I think they got some good receivers. I'm not worried about that. Their running backs are good if they could stay healthy. Sam Howell, I told you he'd get the keys, I thought, toward the end of the season, and he did. And defensively, you've got Deron Payne, you have Chase Young, you got a bunch of guys that I think, you got Phil Mathis, who I covered in college. You have a bunch of players, Kendall Fuller, that I think, defensively can help you out here. So where to go in this world of the Washington Commanders with this pick? I like Dalton Kincaid. I mean, I could be crazy on this to some people as far as position picking, and it's a tight end, but Dalton can't listen. They need a healthy tight end, and tight ends help in blocking, and they're not just there to catch the ball, they're there to help you out. So I'm going to go with Dalton Kincaid with this pick for the Washington Commanders. I'm going to go with Kincaid, the first tight end off the board. That brings me to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers at number 17, they could use a lot of help. So, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, there's a lot of different areas to go where they could be of assistance here. And I know Devin Witherspoon's still on the board here, and Kalijah Cansey is there too, and you could keep him in Pittsburgh. So I think we're going to do that. We're going to go Cansey. We're going to go Pittsburgh staying in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh likes to do that. So the interior defensive lineman, I'm going to keep Cansey from the Pitt Panthers in Pittsburgh. We know that they've done that, and a former teammate of Kenny Pickett. So let's go with that with Cansey. The Detroit Lions at number 18 overall. How about that with the Lions? Not picking so high up anymore. That's a nice feeling. So with the Detroit Lions going here and having a shot to, I think the Detroit, they picked number 6. So they picked number 6. I don't know why. I was like, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I had forgotten that it had slipped my mind. So with the Detroit Lions, with their second pick of the first round, which is going to be number 18 overall, I think the Detroit Lions here for me, this pick could go in a bunch of different places. And the reason why I say that is because the Detroit Lions, they do have a bunch of needs there. Now, if you go back to the first round with their pick, I had them take an edge rusher in Wilson. So now you go to the Detroit Lions and you say to yourself, and I also, if you go back to the first round here, the first running back taken off the board, Bijan Robinson, went to the Falcons, so they can't draft him. So looking at the Detroit Lions with their second pick of the first round at number 18 overall, you got DeAndre Swift, you got David Montgomery, who you brought into this thing. Now, are you looking for your quarterback of the future? Are you looking to bring somebody in, train them, and help them? And do you really want to draft them that high where I'm not sold on any of these quarterbacks remaining on the board being I I shouldn't say I'm not sold on any of them being potential guys of the future, but is this where I want to draft Will Levis is really what I'm trying to say. So, you brought back Marvin Jones Jr., you got Amon-Ra St. Brown at wide receivers. I already went to the defensive side with edge here. So where do we want to go now? Do we want to build some depth at linebacker, or do I want to stay on the offensive side of the ball? I mean, I think, to me, Detroit is probably gonna switch to offense here. They could be advantageous with the fact that they can get an offensive player at this point. And I'm going to have them taking the guy that I covered in college that switched over to Fly Slamma Jamma Bama, Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm going to have him take the Bama running back here. Gibbs, Bijan would make sense here if he's still available, but in my mock draft, he's not. So I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs to the Lions there at number 18. At number 19 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their needs here defensively I'm going to look to, and the fact that there's a bunch of guys here. Van Ness is still here. Banks is here. Branch is here. So they could take any one of these characters with their pick here, their first pick of the draft at pick number 19. And they can also take Devin Witherspoon. So I would say if I'm going to look at corner, I'm going to send Banks down there. I'm going to send Deonte Banks down to Tampa Bay. So we'll put Banks here at number 19. And then at number 20, the Seahawks have another pick. And if we fade back to the first portion of my draft here, I had the Seahawks at number 5 taking Carter, the defensive tackle out of Georgia. And so now with another pick here, I think Seattle could go wide receiver, and I can understand them doing that. I mean, listen, they're going to have to figure things out as time moves forward and what they're going to do with their receivers. They have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I like Kenneth Walker III here at running back for them, who they drafted last year. And the question, I also covered him in college, but the question is about, do you want to build depth there? Because they don't really have a bunch of running backs anymore. They did, and now they don't. So do they want to take a flyer on a running back and bring somebody in, or do they want to look at the defensive side of the ball and maybe look at, building up their defensive line a little bit more? Do they double dip after taking Carter? So if I look at what's still available here, we'll go to the defensive line first, and I'll go to the edge side of things. So you got Miles Murphy out of Clemson. You got Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa as well. And, you have Tooley out of USC. You got BJ out of LSU. You got Will McDonald IV out of Iowa State. So, I mean, that's the edge side of things. I don't think we're going to double dip at D tackle here for the team. If I look at available running backs that are going to be here at this point after two of it, you got Zach Charbonnet, but I don't think they're going to go this high on a running back. So I'm going to go to edge rusher. Let's see. I'm going to take Lucas Van Ness. I'm going to take Van Ness here for them from on the edge side of things. So I'm going to build up the defense for the Seattle Seahawks, and we're going to keep building up that defense. So I'm going to double dip here and take two defensive linemen. So Van Ness is going to come here to round out 11 through 20 of my mock draft here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. I love this music. I got to play it again. And we'll be right back with my mock draft this morning on draft day on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life.
In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, hanging out with you where sports meets life. Ross Turetsky will be joining me in just a few minutes, but we're going to continue our mock draft in our third and final portion here of the first round on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora here on Draft Day. So as we move into pick 21, and now I'm calling this pick 21, it's pick 22, whatever you want to call it. Pick 21 was forfeited by the Miami Dolphins for making decisions that affected the integrity of the game, as it's been called. So the Miami Dolphins are going to be out of this first round. And so it's technically the 22nd pick that is the Chargers, but it's the 21st. And I'm like, just call it what it is, folks. It's 31 picks instead of 32. Everybody moves up a spot. So with the 21st pick, the Los Angeles Chargers will select is where we're at right now. And the Chargers, for me, with the 21st overall pick, I mean, we're looking at this, and I just had Van Ness come off the board. So if Van Ness is off of this board, we're going to have to look to other places here. And they have their new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, which is good here. And they have the opportunity to take a look at a few different things at this point. So, I mean, I would look at wide receiver here. I didn't have many of them come off the board. Jordan Addison out of USC is sitting right there for him. And so why don't we go there for the Chargers as they build toward the future? So I'm going to go with the 21st pick of this year's NFL draft in my mock draft. Jordan Addison, who I covered when he was a Pitt Panther. Got to interview him. Jordan Addison going from Pitt to USC and moving forward to the Chargers from there. At number 22, if the Ravens don't trade up, and I have a thought about the Ravens. My thought about the Ravens is they could trade up in this thing. They could flip the script. They could do something very interesting here, in my opinion. Now, I think that the Ravens could trade Lamar Jackson on draft night, and that's why we're sitting here wondering, why are things so quiet? Why are things, so stale between the Ravens and Lamar Jackson? Well, I think that there's a chance that there could be a move happening that could send him to Houston or Indianapolis. Now, that move that could send him to Houston or Indianapolis, to me, is going to put him in a position where, well, I'll put Houston and Indy. So let's go back to the first 10 of this board. Now, my prognostication is that he could be traded on draft night tonight to either Houston or to Indy. Now, if he gets traded there and the Texans get Lamar or the Colts get Lamar, that means the Ravens would have the second or the fourth pick, whoever they trade with. And in that situation, I think that they could take Anthony Richardson. So if they want Anthony Richardson, then they could trade into either one of those spots, right, and take him. If they want to play it safe, they go with Houston. So the pick that I'm making here is if there is not a trade. But just know that I told you that I believe Lamar Jackson could be traded on draft night. It is my belief. I haven't talked to Lamar. I don't know how many people have. But it is my belief if Lamar Jackson gets traded on draft night, that it would make sense in the top 4 for him to go to the Texans or the Colts, which would give Baltimore their pick. And I would think that they would take Anthony Richardson there, because you're not going to trade Lamar Jackson unless you can get one of those picks. And I think that they should at least make that phone call, because Houston or Indy being enticed by Lamar Jackson is going to make them stop and think and put them on their heels a little bit. So I think it's an important move for them to make, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lamar Jackson gets traded on draft night. I just want to put that out there. So let's say Lamar Jackson does not get traded on draft night, and that puts us here at number 22, and you say, what do the Baltimore Ravens need? Well, they obviously need receiver help. The question is, can Lamar get the ball out to these guys cleanly and consistently? Rashad Bateman's coming off an injury. Odell's there now. And then you got a ton of guys that are still trying to find their way. Isaiah Likely filled in nicely when Mark Andrews was out with an injury. Or do you go on the defensive side of the ball? Well, and they could. They could definitely go defensively and make some moves here. But let's say they stay on the offensive side. Let's say, okay, they're keeping Lamar. They want Lamar to be happy, yada, yada, yada. So they go and they look at the fact that Zay Flowers is available at number 22. They could also get Quentin Johnston, Nathaniel Dell, Josh Downs. There's a bunch of guys they can get. So there's a few moves that they can make here. I'm going to say that they're going to get a wide receiver here. I'll pick one, but I'm not going to pick Zay. I think that, let's look at the numbers. So if we pick up Josh Downs' numbers here, statistically at North Carolina, another guy that I covered. So we look at Josh Downs and we take a look at his numbers over the past couple seasons here. Had over 100 catches in 2021, just shy of that in 2022. 1,000-yard receiver in both, and had 8 touchdowns in 2021, 11 in 2022. So that's something to look at here. So that's Josh Downs, right? So then we look at Zay Flowers and say, okay, what did Zay Flowers do when he decided to come back to Boston College? Now, and he's had to play with a bunch of different quarterbacks, mind you, but he still got over 1,000 yards last season. And first 1,000-yard season that he had 700 plus before that and 892 in 2020. So that's something to look at. He can also run the ball a lot. So Zay Flowers, if Baltimore were to draft him, they could draft him to be a running back and a wide receiver, or a wide receiver that could be involved in sets to run the ball. And they've had a lot of injuries to their backfield. But do the Ravens also make decisions that make sense? So, I mean, Zay Flowers, to me, he's a double threat guy for sure. For sure, he is. He could do a lot of different things. This is a running offense. So, you know what? I'm going to go with Zay Flowers in this one. I'm thinking Josh Downs could go. Don't be surprised if he does. But looking at the way that the offense runs and what Zay Flowers can bring to them and how he's run the ball, this is an offense that, if it keeps Lamar or switches to Anthony Richardson, is built to run. So Zay Flowers would make some sense there as a running back and a wide receiver. He would fit perfectly into the scheming of things. So I'm going to go with him there. The Vikings at number 23 here. The Minnesota Vikings, they could go to, now Cansey is already off my list. I know to some people in their mock drafts he's here. But if Cansey is not there, which in mine he is not, then they're going to have to go somewhere else. And for Minnesota, as we break this down here, now they could go to the quarterback of their future. They could go to a wide receiver. They could go to a corner. Now, looking at Minnesota's current depth chart on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora as we continue our mock draft, you got Kirk Cousins, but you're not going to have him forever. Delvin Cook's good when he stays healthy. And I say that over and over again, when he stays healthy. They only have really one wide receiver in Justin Jefferson right now. So you want to get some help for that. And Minnesota, if we look at the Minnesota Vikings in this year's draft for 2023 and the draft picks that they have, Minnesota is in a position where they're picking here at number 23, and then they're not going to pick again until 87. So in that sense, I think we're going to go wide receiver here for the Minnesota Vikings. And with that being said, you can get a guy that's got back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. I'm going to go with Josh Downs here. So Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, I could literally see them flip-flop here in the first round between 22 and 23. But I'm going to go right here with Downs going to the Minnesota Vikings, which provides the Jacksonville Jaguars, my team, at number 24. And I think that I feel like I have to make this pick with me on screen since I'm wearing the proper attire for this. And my jersey is number 13. It says Covino on the back in honor of my grandma and grandpa on my mom's side. And obviously wearing that fresh teal Jaguars hat. So with that being said, with the 24th pick of this year's NFL draft, my Jacksonville Jaguars will select. And he's still there. So I'm going to take Alabama safety Brian Branch. I gotta take Alabama safety Brian Branch, who could be there for Jacksonville, could be and could not be. And so I'm going to go with Brian Branch, safety, Alabama, help out that secondary, the back line of the defense for the Jacksonville Jaguars, make them even stronger as they get ready to hopefully repeat in the playoffs and go a little bit farther this season would be the hope for that. They do need offensive line help, and I have talked about it, their need for offensive linemen. So they could go Anton Harrison here. They could also go DeJuan Jones, Matt Bergeron, who's a guy that I thought could sneak into the first round. Not even sneak into the first round. I think he is first round talent here. So Berge is going to be there as well. But Brian Branch, I just feel like if he's there at safety, as I've said earlier this week, I think that they should go offensive tackle. I haven't come off of offensive tackle. I've constantly for weeks said that they should draft an offensive tackle unless, Brian Branch is available. I said you can talk me out of it if Brian Branch is still on the board. In this case, he still is, so I'm going to go with Brian Branch. Next one up here, the New York Football Giants. Well, they took a chance on a guy who people thought was undersized as a tackle, and they picked up Justin Pugh, and he played 5 years there. Now, you have Matt Bergeron, same height, 6'5", and about the same weight, few more pounds than Justin Pugh, 310 plus. He's going to be there at 25. But is that where they go? So you have wide receiver needs, you have offensive line needs, you have defensive needs. So I would say with the run on wide receivers. Now they brought in Darren Waller from the Raiders, who was the best receiver that the Raiders had for a couple seasons, even though he's playing at tight end. So, I mean, listen, Jahad Ward comes over there from Jacksonville. You got Dexter Lawrence, who I covered in college. You know, you got some guys here on the defensive side of the ball. You have Thibodeau, who you got last year. So I think with them seeing a run on wide receivers, speaking of the New York Football Giants, they could get a little antsy here and feel like they need to go and take somebody. So they can get Quentin Johnston or they can get Nathaniel Dell at this place. Rashee Rice is also there. So if we look at Nathaniel Dell out of Houston and take a look at his statistics here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life inside of our mock draft. We look at Nathaniel Dell. He had back-to-back, not 1,000-yard seasons. He had back-to-back 1,300-yard seasons, 12 touchdowns and 17 touchdowns, respectively, from 2021 and 2022. That's Nathaniel Dell. Quentin Johnston, if we look at his numbers. So, again, I mean, Nathaniel Dell, he could be the first one off the board. He could be the first receiver off the board in this draft, you know, when you look at those numbers and what he was able to do. Now, Quentin Johnston playing at TCU, we look at his numbers, he had 1,000-yard season. It was last season, 1,069, 6 touchdowns. I think some teams are going to pass on him. I think you're going to go Nathaniel Dell here for the New York Football Giants. So I'm going with another receiver here. I didn't anticipate that I would necessarily have such a run on wide receivers in the first round, but I'm definitely having it. You look at the back end, well, and this is also the back end of the first round, but pick 21, 22, 23, and 25, all wide receivers, which leads me to the Dallas Cowboys who let Dalton Schultz go, which I don't agree with, and I don't understand why they would do that. So the Dallas Cowboys letting go of Dalton Schultz, who I thought was definitely putting himself in a position to be a top 10, sometimes a top 6 wide receiver, tight end in the country, and now they need a tight end. So, you know, they need another running back, and they could look to defensive line, but they definitely need a tight end. So how about this? The last time they drafted a tight end in the first round was David LaFleur, who was 22nd overall in 1997. So if I'm looking at the Dallas Cowboys right now and I'm looking at the tight end position, Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame is there. They like their Notre Dame guys. Obviously, they took an offensive lineman out of Notre Dame in recent history early on in the first round. So I'm going to say Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame, is going to go to the Dallas Cowboys because, I don't know why they let Dalton Schultz go unless they thought, hey, we can make a play for Mayer in the first round here. So put it in the Ayer, and drafting Mayer there at number 26. Some people just put their hand to their face and said, Dan, did you really do that? And yeah, I did, because I felt like it. And I don't care what you think, because it's my show. So with that being said, we're going to go to pick 27 for the Buffalo Bills. What the Bills going to do at this pick right here? The Buffalo Bills have an opportunity to go after a wide receiver. I thought if Zay Flowers fell to this point at 27, they'd be stupid not to take him. But Zay Flowers is not available at this point, and neither is Josh Downs. So if we go and look at the Buffalo Bills depth chart here right now, you have a bunch of running backs that are there, and I like James Cook. Bringing in Damian Harris, that'll be interesting to see. Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, and they could be bringing in DeAndre Hopkins. They could trade out of this position. They could do something with the Arizona Cardinals and get D-Hop. So don't be surprised if D-Hop makes a little move within the 3 days of the draft. So I'm going to go to the defensive side of the ball because they had a bunch of injuries to the defensive side. And Micah Hyde, he got injured last year, and that affected the team. So we're going to go safety for the Buffalo Bills. It makes sense for them to go there. And available at safety, they have Antonio Johnson out of Texas A&M, Jordan Battle out of Alabama, Sidney Brown. I'm going to go with Jordan Battle here for the Buffalo Bills, battle tested inside of the SEC. And so I'm going to go with Jordan Battle to help them build some depth at safety in case they need it. Which brings me to the Cincinnati Bengals at number 28 overall. The Cincinnati Bengals, they need help on the offensive and defensive line, in my opinion. So they could look to either one of those spots here. Some people are thinking that they need to go out there and get another running back. I don't know how that makes some sense. But with the Cincinnati Bengals here, offensive and defensive line, I'm going to take a look at who's available on the offensive line. You could get Anton Harrison here for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's still on the board, so he could drop to the second round. But looking at this right now, it could make some sense for them to go and grab an offensive line. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to protect Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is one of the only quarterbacks that cannot be protected and still figure out how to make it happen with fantastic numbers. So Miles Murphy, edge rusher out of Clemson, he's still available here too at this point. And looking at their defensive side of the ball, they brought in Alex Cappa last year too to be a guard, but I think a tackle would be a good bet here for Cincinnati. I'm going to stick with that. There are some good edge rushers that are out there, but I think for Cincinnati, you got to stay on the offensive line. So DeJuan Jones and Anton Harrison, two guys that they could take. Anton Harrison from Oklahoma, DeJuan Jones from Ohio State. And their rankings are close. I'm going to go with Anton Harrison here. Anton Harrison, the tackle, coming out of Oklahoma. And listen, the Bengals have gone for Joe Burrow. They've gone for Jamar Chase. They've needed an offensive lineman for years. They've gone offensive side of the ball. They brought in some good guys and some good weapons. It's time to now listen and protect your quarterback. So I'm going to go with Anton Harrison. But I think, an offensive tackle or an offensive lineman in general is a good pick here for Cincinnati overall. For the Saints at number 29, they got this pick from San Francisco via Miami and Denver. So 3 teams had this pick before New Orleans got it. And New Orleans, listen, the Saints always need defense. They can be aided by defense at in all stretches of the imagination at all times. So, I think for the New Orleans Saints here, defensively, you got to look at the defensive line. You got a bunch of talent here on offense. Chris Olave, I told you he would take over as the top wide receiver when he was a rookie last year because I said who's going to stand in his way. And I feel the exact same way about that right now. So for New Orleans now, I'm going to look at interior and exterior here on the line. I'm going to give them Miles Murphy, the edge rusher out of Clemson. So we're going to go with Miles Murphy here. Some Clemson talent to hopefully bring some life to this defense. I said if Drew Brees ever had not even a great defense, but a little bit above average defense, they could win a Super Bowl. They had an above average defense the year that they won the Super Bowl over the Colts and Peyton Manning. So I'm going to bring in Murphy here to help them build up their defense again. Number 30 going to the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles, look at the great thing about the Philadelphia Eagles is they got 2 picks here in the draft, including a top 10 pick that came from New Orleans, and now they get to pick again. So, atypical for a team to be the runner-up in the Super Bowl and get to pick twice in the first round. But Philadelphia's smart. They've been smart in a lot of ways, and they get an opportunity to make this pick here. So with the 30th pick on the clock here, they could go wide receiver. They could go to a lot of different areas here. They could go to offensive line and protecting Jalen Hurts, which I think would be a good thing to do. If we go back to the first pick that they had here, I had them take an edge rusher with Nolan Smith. So Nolan Smith, a little bit of a hybrid there. So let's go to the offensive side of the ball. They went defense. Let's go offense. I think a lot of teams, it makes sense for them to do that, right? If they picked offense first, then they can go defense or vice versa in the first round. If you get a couple picks here, some of them, I had one team double dipping, but beyond that, I think, we can go to a few different areas here for the Philadelphia Eagles. And if we look at the Eagles' overall depth chart, the Philadelphia Eagles, to me, running back wise, they could use some help there. They could definitely. I said before that I think they're okay. But, you brought in Rashad Penny, you got Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Trey Sermon, you lost Miles Sanders. And Miles Sanders, listen, I think he could have been an above-average running back if he had stayed healthy. I think healthy, he is an above-average running back. So, you could look at running back later on here in the draft. You got a bunch of guys that I like at well, a couple guys I like at wide receiver, I should say, in AJ and Devontae. You got two arguable ones playing together. So I look at the defensive side of the ball and say, do I want to double dip here? And I'm already reuniting some guys from Georgia, which I like. And yeah, I mean, I think there's some good pieces there. So I'm going to look at running back. I'm going to look at offensive line. And I don't think I need to look at wide receiver here. So I would say, Osiris Torrance or DeJuan Jones I'd be looking at here. And I like Osiris Torrance out of Florida for the Eagles interiorly. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with Osiris Torrance here if I'm going to go offensive line, which I think I should. So going offensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm going to put guard there so you can see that. Now the Chiefs at 31 have the final pick of the first round. Kansas City Chiefs can go to wherever they want to go to. I mean, you just won a Super Bowl, so where would you like to go if you're the Kansas City Chiefs besides Disney? And if I'm the Chiefs, looking at this draft and how my draft is shaken out, Pacheco is a guy that you swung on and you hit. You got the opportunity here to bring in a wide receiver, and there's been a run on him. You could also look at the defensive side of the ball. You can look at the offensive line. So if I'm the Chiefs, best available. I mean, I could go. I don't want to go there. So if I'm the Chiefs, it would make sense to look at the wide receivers, but do I want to take a wide receiver right here? I mean, if I'm looking at best available, there's a bunch of corners here, but I don't want to take a corner for them at this pick. They just brought in a tackle. So they could go defensive line and try and help out their defense a bit here. I don't think they're going to go wide receiver here. I don't think the Chiefs are going to go wide receiver here. So that would leave me, I mean, it would make sense to. My gut's telling me no. So if that's the case, and I'm going to go defensive line, because that would make sense for me to go here. Will McDonald IV is still available from Iowa State. We have Felix Uzama from Kansas State, and we have Mozzie Smith from Michigan. I also have Brian Breesy. So you got some interior guys, you got some exterior guys. This is tough. It's a tough pick for Kansas City. Because, I mean, they have so much. Now, they got Karlaftis last year at DN, so let's go interior. They have Danny Shelton and Chris Jones. Chris Jones did a nice job last year, too. So, yeah, my gut's just saying they're not going to go with a wide receiver here. So, you could go Mozzie Smith, or you could go Brian Breesy. I'm going to go Mozzie Smith. Let me see. So Mozzie, let's look at this and how many snaps he had. The things that he did here. Now, he had 1 sack in each of the last 2 seasons. Hurried the quarterback 14 times in 2021, 19 times last year. Batted 2 balls down in 2021. So that's Mozzie. If I look at Breesy, let's see what Breesy did. Batted down 2 balls this past year. Hurried the quarterback 17 times, up from 6. Sacked the quarterback 3 times. And sacked him 1 time the year before. I'm going to go Brian Breesy. That's where I'm going to go. Now, again, I think this pick for the Chiefs, it would make sense for them to take a wide receiver but I'm going to put them in this scenario of taking a defensive lineman, building up their defense a little bit better. They have so many weapons on offense, and they could definitely use a receiver. I just don't know if they're necessarily going to spend that on the first round. So that's my mock draft. That's where we are. The mock draft, round 1, pick 1 through 31, all here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in an awesome morning of being able to pick the field for the first round of the NFL draft. I love stuff like this. We'll be right back with Ross Turetsky joining me on the broadcast to talk about his thoughts on draft day, as well as Aaron Rodgers. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9Campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9Campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout central and upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. This is a special message from 317 at Montgomery restaurant owner Joel Carpenter. Open Tuesday through Saturday for your dining pleasure on 317 Montgomery Street in Syracuse, New York.
We wanted to be a part of the resurgence of Syracuse. We saw a lot of money being put into bringing people back downtown and thought that, we'd like to be a part of that. I love putting together a good dish where people see it first, they fall in love with it, and then it tastes just as good as it looks. We want to provide the best food in Syracuse that we possibly can, and we want you to leave here talking to your family, your friends about what you had to eat first and foremost, but also our service, and to walk out feeling like you're part of our family. I work out in the front of the house a lot, and I love walking to every single table, asking them how everything is, and people looking at me and smiling and saying, this is the most amazing short rib I've ever had. This is the most amazing filet I've ever had. And Donna is great. Sarah's amazing. Thank you for coming over and talking to us. And then them just being truly happy for the experience that they've gotten.
317 at Montgomery Restaurant, part of the fabric of downtown Syracuse, located on 317 Montgomery Street in Syracuse, New York. Open Tuesday through Saturday for a unique and memorable dining experience.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Happy to be here with you, hanging out with you. And thank you so much for being a part of this show. And thank you for your continued prayers for PJ, and for Bruce. So I thank you for that. I definitely thank you for that, and send you all my love and appreciation. So, I can't thank you enough. I really can't. And it's a reminder that life is precious. It's a reminder that we shouldn't waste our time and we should be good to each other. So I appreciate that. And we look at some of the things here. Greg said, love the soundtrack, DT. Good luck with your mock draft prognostications. Yeah, Greg, this is 1.0. Tonight we do 2.0. And so that's the thing about my mock draft, is sometimes we would do it building up into it, but we've had so much going on here at Wake Up Call, and I've been very spoiled because we've had just tremendous guests on throughout this year, and it's not even the middle of the year yet, and we've had a year of records and a year. I mean, we've honestly just had a historic year to remember already. So, yeah. So, I mean, I appreciate that you like the soundtrack. And if you like the soundtrack, you're going to hear it today at Pizza Man at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time today, April 27th. On draft night, we're going to reprise our roles. And when I say we, Al Romano and I are going to be on site, on location, on the stage at Pizza Man, 50 Oswego Street, in Baldwinsville, New York. I'm going to be eating my sweet heat pizza and getting myself some of those lemon pepper wings like Lou Williams. And I'm going to be enjoying my food, having a great time on the stage with my wonderful co-host, Al Romano, who won a championship with the Pitt Panthers in college with Tony Dorsett. So very excited to have Off the Rails with Al, as him and I will be picking throughout the draft. So you're hearing from me this morning doing the mock draft because I couldn't help myself. And then tonight I'm gonna sit on my picks. I'm gonna spend these next few hours kind of breaking them down, what I liked, what I didn't like, what I agree with, what I didn't agree with, and I'm gonna go through this again, analyze it again. Really deep analysis of the picks that I chose. Listen to some more things, take some more stuff in. I'll be back with 2.0 tonight. Al Romano and I will be picking the field again against each other, seeing what we both think. Do we agree or disagree? I won't see his list. He won't see my list. So Al and I will go into this blindly as far as what the other person picked, and we will be doing our mock draft 2.0 tonight on Wake Up Call ahead of the draft. So at 6:30 p.m. all the way to the draft, we're going to be building up the entire first round, talking about all the teams, including the teams that aren't drafting. We'll make all those notes. We'll talk about Aaron Rodgers, and we'll bring you all the way to 8 o'clock. And everybody knows the first pick will not be at 8 o'clock. It'll probably be at 8:32. So we'll bring you to the door of the draft tonight at Pizza Man. We can't wait to see you there. Before that happens, I got my guy Ross Turetsky here on the broadcast. We like to call ourselves Arson and Coke. He's Arson, I'm Coke, and we're happy to be having that conversation as we always do. Greg said, very surprised Joey Porter Jr. was not taken in the first round. He's a talent. I agree, but it's how my mock draft shook out. There's a bunch of guys that you could say that about. So don't think I wasn't looking at Joey Porter with a couple of those picks, Greg, but it's not that he's not talented. He wasn't taken in my first round because what I was looking at the time I was looking at it did not address the need to bring him in at that moment. But there are a couple places where I could have saw him fit in for sure. So with that being said, I'm here with Ross on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora as we shift into a conversation about this guy. You might know him. His name is Aaron Rodgers. He's like somewhat well known. I mean, he's out there. He's just kind of doing his thing. He's known for he's known for not coming to OTAs. He's also known for having multiple girlfriends that you know from movies and sports. He's known for going to cabins where they say that there's no electricity, but there is electricity, and he has food delivered to him, but he's on a retreat where nobody's supposed to be there. We also know that he's a man who's grown his hair out and kept it short. He's had the beard and gotten rid of the beard. And he's done his best impression of Brett Favre in making the Green Bay Packers wait for many years. So with that being said, his name's Aaron Rodgers, but you probably knew that already. Ross, how we doing, brother?
Jets. It's time. I've drank. You were asking me the other day, was I drinking the Kool-Aid? I have, because I don't care at this point. I'm going to go down with the ship like the Titanic. The New York Jets are going to the Super Bowl, and they're going to win it with Aaron Rodgers this year. Super Bowl 3, as Aaron Rodgers said in his introductory press conference yesterday, it's looking a little lonely, that Super Bowl banner from all those years ago. Well, he's going to get a friend this upcoming year, because they will be celebrated in Vegas. I think the Super Bowl will be. And if they somehow make it to the Super Bowl, I will be there, and I will be cheering them on. The New York Jets are going to win the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm having the ayahuasca, whatever the heck he does on the dark street for 4 days. He's going to get it done. He has that long, slick-back hair, kind of the mullet from Nicolas Cage and Con Air. He's going to look glorious, and he's going to win us the Super Bowl. The New York Jets are going to be Super Bowl champions February 2024. Bank on it. If you lose your house banking on it, not my fault. I guarantee. You'll like the way you look. I guarantee it. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I will guarantee it. But if you lose your home, not my fault. But yeah, I'll go into the Super Bowl, and they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, and I love it. Even if it's only going to be good for 1 or 2 years, because he's going to be 39. He's 39. He'll be 40 on December 2nd before the season's out. So this is a 1 or 2 year experiment. I do find it funny. Zach Wilson, who's been a train wreck, said, God help whoever veteran quarterback they bring in are going to make his life a living hell. Well, Zach Wilson, you're garbage. I don't even feel comfortable that he's our backup, because if Aaron Rodgers is an older quarterback gets hurt, you have to rely on Zach Wilson. There's no more Mike White anymore. He's left to the Miami Dolphins. So I'll worry about Zach Wilson when the time comes. Hopefully he never takes a meaningful snap in Jets history ever again. He's been a bust. The most thing he's known for is hooking up with Stifler's mom from American Pie fame. He just hooks up with moms after moms and girlfriends' moms and all that stuff. That's his problem. Let him enjoy it. That's all he's going to be known for. He's a draft bust. He's worse than Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold looks like Joe Montana and Tom Brady put together compared to Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's a trade wreck. Aaron Rodgers, he's crazy. He has conspiracy theories. The whole vaccination thing where he's like, I'm immunized, wink, wink, and he really wasn't. He was out a game because he wasn't vaccinated. Well, all that's gone now. There's no more COVID protocols. So he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. He's going to let the hair flow freely. He's going to, I think, have immense weight lifted off his shoulder. New York media is going to be a lot harsher than the Milwaukee Green Bay media. But I think he's such a big-time megastar. As you said, he's been out with big-time girlfriends. Shailene Woodley was his fiance, Danica Patrick, Olivia Munn. I think he's used to the fame. I think he wants to end his career with all the fame with the New York City spotlight, the harshest spotlight, the #1 media market in the whole country, the whole world. And for better or for worse, I'm sure there's going to be controversies. I'm sure there's going to be inconsistencies. I hope it's not like Brett Favre, where he was good during that one season, then he got hurt and with the Jets, and then he was never the same on the Jets because his shoulder was hurt, and then he ended up getting traded to the Vikings. I hope this is not just a one-year experiment where he's on the Jets, and then he ends up going to either Minnesota or another superstar team, the 49ers, his childhood team, after 1 year, because he really could. He could just kind of use the Jets for one season, and the Jets was kind of screwed over. But I'm hoping this is for at least 2 years, and you get 2 kicks of the can at this, so it's either this year or next year. But I'm hoping this year, year 1, he gets it done. Aaron Rodgers, is it perfect? No. Would you like a quarterback who could be good for the next 6 or 7 years with the Jets? Absolutely. But has not worked in the draft. They drafted 2 high first-round picks in Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson. I still think Sam Darnold's going to be pretty decent, but both have not worked out. So instead of going the draft route for a 3rd year in a row with a high draft pick, and they don't have the highest draft pick because they had 7 wins, even with the crappy quarterback they had last year, because they had such a great defense, so many star position players. Garrett Wilson was offensive player, rookie of the year. They have defensive rookie of the year with Sauce Gardner. They have the defense. They have the running back, Reese Hall, who's come back from the injury. They have the star receivers. They needed a little work in the offensive line to protect Aaron Rodgers. The one thing they were lacking last year was an actual functional quarterback, a quarterback who's not just going to crap himself when the first blitz comes after him. Now they have that. They were on pace to go to the playoffs. They were 7-4 with 6 games to go. They lost 6 games in a row to not make the playoffs. They have the longest drought in NFL right now we had 12 years, a dozen years without going to the playoffs. I can't stand it anymore. I guarantee you, no matter what, that the playoff drought will end as long as Aaron Rodgers is healthy and still standing come season end at 40 years old. They're going to end the 12-year playoff drought, and I still think they have a good chance to make a run with that strong defense, all those star position players. If Aaron Rodgers is healthy and still playing anywhere remotely near that back-to-back MVP form, he's a 4-time MVP overall, like he was just a couple of years ago. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are going to compete for that Super Bowl, and I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. They're going to win the Super Bowl. Your thoughts, buddy?
Listen, last time I checked, Pat Mahomes is still a Chief. And, Buffalo, they got to build some things up and get some confidence and close out some.
Buffalo, remember, Zach Wilson as the starting quarterback, and the Jets beat Buffalo last season, almost beat them a second time, and then Buffalo almost lost to the Dolphins without two-at quarterback in the first round. They almost embarrassed themselves in round one. And in round two, the Bengals on the road in Buffalo destroyed the Bills. So as much as I'm excited for the Bills with all the how talented they are, I know my mother-in-law loves the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen's a great quarterback. He makes too many turnovers. He's like a young Brett Favre, which Aaron Rodgers does not turn the ball over like that. And I'm excited to see it. Hopefully, Damar Hamlin is healthy. They say he's going to be back. That will be an inspirational figure. He claims they said he's going to be ready to play football. You just hope everything goes well with that. I still think the Buffalo Bills are a little more on the downward slide than people think. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Bengals are my two biggest threats in the AFC, I think, as a Jets fan. And I still think the Bengals, they need a little bit of work, as great as Joe Burrow is. And the Chiefs, as great as Pat Mahomes is, he's had ankle injuries lately. He's lost Tyreek Hill. He's lost Juju Smith-Schuster. He's lost the Hedman guy. They lost one of their star receivers to the Jets. So he's losing receivers. He's losing offensive line. He's losing some key players, and he's losing some defensive players as well. Eventually, as great as Pat Mahomes is, he can't win with just a bunch of nobodies. So I think they're going to be threats to the Bengals and the Chiefs. I think those are my two main threats as a Jets fan of the AFC. But I still think the Jets now can at least compete with them. They're in the conversation, which is a desperate Jets fan, a hopeless Jets fan for many years. That's all I can wish for, is to be in the conversation after years of losing and being embarrassed.
Yeah, the longest active streak in the NFL of not going to the playoffs, 12 straight seasons, belongs to the Jets. And so not the Browns, not the Lions, not the Jaguars, belongs to the Jets. And
the last time they made the playoffs, as much people made fun of Rex Ryan and his foot fetish and all that stuff, they made back-to-back AFC Championship games.
I know.
Games against the Colts and my wife's Steelers back-to-back years. And they came so close to go to the Super Bowl with Mark Sanchez, the quarterback, who was at least decent then, and then he turned out to be a complete bust. But the Jets were actually a good team, a Super Bowl contender back-to-back years. And since then, since January 2011, there's been no playoffs. They've came close. They even had a 10-win season in 2015 in Tom Bowles' first season as the Jets coach. They still found a way not to make the playoffs because they just had to beat the Bills, but they used to stink. And Ryan Fitzpatrick threw like 4 interceptions in that game, and he totally blew it. And then, of course, last year, as I said, 7-4, we're finally making the playoffs. I don't think so. Because Mike White gets hurt, and then they have to go back to Zach Wilson, who just throws interception after interception and throws for 40 yards again. He can't win like that. They had him play basically with a quarterback with a blindfold on and had both arms tied around his back. This year, if Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy, which I know is a big if because he's had injuries lately and he's going to be 40 years old, he is more than a functional quarterback. He is worth a few wins, and they already won 7 wins last year. If he's healthy and can play at a productive level, they go from 7 wins to I think at least 11 to 12 wins this year, and that's a major difference, and that's a surefire playoff team then.
yeah, I look back at this, and and I've spoken about the situation that this team is in, and what they've done, and I think they can win. I have them winning right around 12 games, going 12-5. So I have them in the 11-12 category as far as wins go, and so I wouldn't be surprised if that happened at all. And so for me, I see it. I see it already. Now, am I buying the Kool-Aid of the Super Bowl? No. But I am not buying. Yeah.
You want to come to Vegas with me and have a hangover party, celebrating the Jets winning their second ever Super Bowl. What is it now? Going to be 54 years after it happened in 1969. You want to come to Vegas with me to watch them win a Super Bowl. You know it, buddy.
Hey, this is the thing: is I will go with you to Vegas. I just, if and when it happened, I would go with you to Vegas. I just, Again, Kansas City, Cincinnati. I'm not as worried about Buffalo. And it's because they've underperformed, which has been sad. But let's look at the quarterbacks that since the last time they made it to the playoffs. Let's look at the run of quarterbacks. By the way, I covered Mark Sanchez. He was good to me. Interviewed him, and I loved what he did for back-to-back seasons with the Jets, and he did it so early in his career. Now, Mark Sanchez. Let's go back to the beginning of Mark Sanchez after they had. And how about this? Right before Mark Sanchez, there was another Green Bay Packer that got traded to the Jets. His name, Brett Favre. He was traded for a pick that was in the 4th round. The better he did, the more he played, I should say, the more percentage of time he played, the higher that pick went from the 4th round. But the last time, so you look at Brett Favre back in 2008, then it was Mark Sanchez and Kellen Clemens, back to Sanchez and Greg. And Greg, hold on. Greg McElroy, who came from Texas. Then you have Geno Smith, who I said would be a great receiver in the NFL. And I thought he proved me right in the beginning. He's proven me wrong now, and I'm happy that he did.
Seahawks last year. He's been pretty inconsistent throughout his year, but he had a heck of a season last year.
He did. And he definitely, keeps them from drafting a quarterback and puts them in a different position in Seattle where they could be a playoff team and they can go get some defensive help. So Geno Smith and Michael Vick, then Ryan Fitzpatrick with Bryce Petty and Geno Smith again, and then Josh McCown and Bryce Petty, Sam Darnold and Josh McCown, Sam Darnold, Luke Falk, Trevor Siemian, Sam Darnold and Joe Flacco, then Zach Wilson, Mike White, Joe Flacco, and Josh Johnson in 2021, and then last year Zach Wilson, Mike White, and Joe Flacco, and Mike White playing at least 4 games, Flacco 4 games, Zach Wilson playing 9 games. So that's where we have been. Now your postseason quarterbacks, Joe Namath, Richard Todd, Ken O'Brien, Pat Ryan, Vinny Testaverde, Chad Pennington, and Mark Sanchez, as we mentioned. So when I talk about that history, buddy, what are your thoughts on the history of quarterbacks? And if we go all the way back to 2008, Brett Favre, all the way through to today.
Basically, I'm holding in the vomit that wants to come out. There's so much horribleness. And then both of the last 2 high draft picks, I drank the Kool-Aid right away, so I'm a little hesitant about doing it now with Aaron Rodgers. I'm doing it a little bit with a little bit bitter taste in my mouth before I have to vomit because I had really high hopes with Sam Darnold. As I said, I still think he showed some flashes, even last year with the Carolina Panthers. Now he's going with the 49ers. He might get a chance to play there because Trey Lance has had some injuries and there's some trade rumors. And then you also have Brock Purdy, who did a great job, but now he basically needs like Tommy John surgery that baseball pitchers get. He's going to be out for a while. But Darnold with the Jets was inconsistent. I still would have wished the Jets would have given him another year. After the 3rd year, they pulled the ripcord and they drafted Zach Wilson, who I think in many ways in this draft is like Will Levis from Kentucky. He could throw the ball deep. He could throw the ball 500 yards if you want him. But he has no consistency. I don't think he has leadership skills. And I think, maybe unfair to say this about him, but I think Will Levis is going to be the Zach Wilson of this NFL draft. I think he's going to be a bust. I think he throws great. He's very confident. He looks the part, but I don't think he's going to be successful as a full quarterback. So I think buyer beware. He's going to get drafted in the first round tonight. I think he's going to be a bust. I think it's going to be a problem for whoever drafts him. But Zach Wilson is so immature. When they asked him, like, when he played horribly in a game last year, he's like, it's not my fault. I did the best I could. You're the quarterback. Whether it's your fault or not, you take leadership in front of the media. You put it on you. When it's good, it's going to be all in your favor. When it's bad, it's going to be all against you. You got to take the ups and the downs. You basically have to put it on your shoulders. I think a real team leader would do that. In the past, we had decent quarterbacks who were serviceable. Chad Pennington, he got hurt a lot, didn't have a great arm strength coming out of the University of Marshall, but he played pretty well, got to the playoffs, won a division title against a young Tom Brady in 2002 with the New York Jets. I think they even beat the Indianapolis Colts in the first round of the playoffs that year, destroyed them. But that was in 2002. That was over 20 years ago. Vinny Testaverde did pretty well in the Bill Parcells years. They had a year where they made it to the AFC Championship game, crushed your Jaguars with Fred Taylor. Mark Brunell is a big fan of those Jaguar teams in the 90s. This is that 98 season, January 1999, before John Elway, Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, and those Denver Broncos, all those Hall of Famers, ended up beating them in a close game and won their back-to-back Super Bowl titles. But it's been few and far between. Of course, the only person you can hang your hat on, and even he was inconsistent if you look at his overall numbers, but was Joe Willie Davis, Broadway Joe. Was, of course, a ladies' man with fur coats and underwear commercials. He was the first big media superstar in New York City, in the media capital of the world. And to this day, he's revered. He's 79 years old. He definitely had his issues, because even a few years back, he had to go to rehab. He told Susie Colbert for ESPN, "I want to kiss you." Like Bill Clinton doing that. He's supposedly all better, though. And he's still a beloved Jet. He'll always be remembered. Even in Little Nicky, the Adam Sandler movie, they joked that Joe Davis sold his soul to the devil, because they were like, "Oh, he's in hell." He joked in the movie because there's no other way the Jets can ever win a Super Bowl. They did win that Super Bowl. I know it was Super Bowl III. It's the Super Bowl that is probably the most influential Super Bowl in football history, because it caused the merger that in 1970 the AFL, the NFL merged, because the Jets, the AFL proved they compete with anyone. That Johnny Unitas and the Baltimore Colts were heavy favorites. They thought the AFL was a Mickey Mouse minor league football league. It's almost like if they were playing the USFL or the XFL, now the NFL, their champion versus the NFL champion, and the XFL team or the USFL team actually beat the champion, beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I don't think that would ever happen, but that's what it became, and that proved that the AFL was legit, and they became the AFC, and we have the NFC as we know. So Joe Davis, and I really liked it that he actually offered Aaron Rodgers his number 12 that he's been wearing his whole career with the Green Bay Packers, the 15 years as a starter, 18 years overall. His first 3 years he sat behind Brett Favre as a backup, and he's like, no, that number's retired. I don't want to be compared to Joe Davis, though he probably will if he makes a deep run and tries to win a Super Bowl. He said, I'll wear number 8, where he wore in college at Cal, and back in his college days. I like that move already by Aaron Rodgers. Smart move, because even though it would be great to see wear number 12, and Joe Davis was all behind it, that's Joe Davis' number. He is going to always be, unless something changes drastically in Jets history, which I hope it does, that they start to become a winner and a laughable franchise. He's the known winner. I know they didn't win a ton, but they won that one Super Bowl. Sometimes all it takes is one. As a lot of people always told me with relationships, even all it takes is one girl to say yes, one person to change your life, and you meet the love of your life. And I found that with my wife. That's all it takes with the Jets. All it took was 1 year that they made the promise. They won the Super Bowl. This is back when they were playing at Chase Stadium in Queens, New York, back when they were playing at the Met Stadium, before they moved to Jersey and back in the early 80s and shared it with the Giants. But yeah, I'm just hoping that this is different. Again, in a perfect world, Derek Carr, which is he's a solid correct, but not great. I liked him a little bit because he would be there for 6 or 7 years, because he's in his early 30s, not almost 40. Lamar Jackson I like, but he's young, but he blows out his knee easily. He runs the ball a lot. He throws it great. He's an MVP as well, but he does run a lot. He missed big chunks of games, missing playoff runs these last 2 years, so I don't necessarily trust Lamar Jackson out there with his health concerns. So at that point, if you're not going to go with Derek Carr, who would have been good but not great, as long as Aaron Rodgers, you believe he still has greatness in him for even just 2 more years, if you could get maybe 2 years out of him, or just one great year out of him as he's pushing 40 years old, then I guess it's worth it, because as the Jets, you're desperate. You've circled the drain in the NFL draft. It's not working for you. You're eventually going to have to go back to the draft and draft someone, unless Zach Wilson somehow rubs off Aaron Rodgers and he becomes a superstar quarterback, which the Jets, Joe Douglas, their general manager, is claiming that's going to happen. I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid, buddy. I don't think Zach Wilson automatically is going to be in the quarterback room with Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to learn a lot. Because remember, Jordan Love, who I think is going to do a decent job with the Packers, he, as much as he was a solid quarterback coming in the first round, Aaron Rodgers felt threatened by him. Aaron Rodgers did not want to help him, did not want to prepare him. He's like, this is my job. Was upset that they drafted instead of big-time wide receiver targets that can help him win a Super Bowl now. So there's no way in my mind that Aaron Rodgers is going to help Zach Wilson out in any way. So unless Zach Wilson somehow picks up something from Aaron Rodgers by watching him play, he's going to have reduced practice time. He's not going to get a chance to play unless, God forbid, he gets injured. Hopefully Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. I don't think Zach Wilson's going to be the choice. I think you're going to have him for 2 years of greatness if he's healthy, and then you're going to have to go to the draft or free agency and get a new quarterback. But for those 2 years, it's going to be a heck of a ride. It's going to be a big, wild, tabloids, media circus in New York City. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of times I'm going to shake my head where he's going to say crazy conspiracy theories like you would find on Twitter and all over the internet. He's almost like a Twitter troll come to life, but he's a superstar talent with a first ballot Hall of Famer, even though he's kind of nuts. The darkness retreat was insane. As he said, people were bringing him food. He was paying tons of money to go into darkness for 4 days, and then he supposedly was leaning towards retirement when he entered the darkness retreat. When he came out, I guess he took a lot of ayahuasca because he's like, not only do I want to come back, I want to play for the New York Jets. I don't think anyone wants to play for the New York Jets. He actually chose to play for the New York Jets, said he wants to play there. He has a lot of his buddies. He got Alan Lazard there. I would be shocked if he finds Randall Cobb a job for the Jets. He wanted to get Odell Beckham Jr. to the Jets, but he ended up going to the Baltimore Ravens. So he's got a lot of the star players that he's comfortable with, playing with. They have a lot of star talent, the Jets. As I said, Garrett Wilson, Offensive Rookie of the Year. And the defensive side of the ball, you got Sauce Gardner and all these big-time pass rushers, quarterbacks. The Jets are ready. They are a quarterback away. So I think for 2 years, it's going to be a media circus. You have to pray for his health. You have to hope he's motivated. He claims he's going to show up to the offseason workout. So he has not really cared to do in Green Bay. He's kind of like checked out. It's like, I'll take my $50 million and I'll go home. I'm a Hall of Famer either way. I'm hoping he's motivated to win that second Super Bowl because I think as great as he is, and he's never going to be, Tom Brady's level because he won the 7 Super Bowls. But if he wants to get up to the next tier, wants to be Peyton Manning or what Pat Mahomes wants to become, you have to at least win 2 Super Bowls. And he's only been that 1 Super Bowl, won it, was the MVP against the Steelers. But that was 12 years ago, the same season that the Steelers knocked off the Jets in the AFC Championship game. Last time the Jets made the playoffs. 12 years ago was the only time he's ever been to the Super Bowl. He's been to the NFC Championship games a bunch, playoffs a bunch, and he's fallen short. It's not all his fault. He hasn't always had a great running game, hasn't always had a great defense, but he needs to finally change that narrative. He can win that second Super Bowl, win a multiple Super Bowl champion, win Super Bowls with 2 teams, and win a Super Bowl with a losing franchise in New York City with all the media spotlight on him. That second Super Bowl, that 1 Super Bowl tie with the Jets to win their second ever franchise history to go along with Joe Namath, that will feel like 5 Super Bowls. So I think it will keep it getting close to Tom Brady's status. And Brady left out of the Patriots the next year. He kind of paved the mold. He set the pace where he won the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers that COVID year, the very next year. So it's not easy to do. Sometimes it takes some time to get chemistry with your players. But if he could do what Brady did when he left from the Patriots to the Bucs, or Peyton Manning when he left from the Colts to the Broncos and win a Super Bowl with that another franchise, and do it with the Jets, a losing franchise, it's going to make him be put on such a high pedestal. He will be up in the upper echelon, top 5 quarterback range. Right now, as great as Aaron Rodgers is, he's not there because of the inconsistencies of the playoffs. He's 11-10 in the playoffs, only the 1 Super Bowl title. He wins 1 with the Jets. I'm telling you, it's going to feel like winning 5 Super Bowls because of how bad they've been historically.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think you're right. I think it's been, like you said, it's been a long time since the last Super Bowl, and it's lonely. So, I feel, I feel like.
Buddy, he also said the press conference. He's like, I didn't come here just to goof around in New York and have fun. He's like, that will be good too. But he did say the press conference. He admitted, I'm an old man. I came here to win. Basically, it's Super Bowl or bust. He knows that because he knows the clock is ticking. He's not going to probably play like Brady until he's 45 years old. He doesn't have another 6 or 7 years. It's probably 1 to 2 years of top-tier play. So even he says, I'm old, I got to win now. It's now or never. He knows that.
Yeah, well, and I got him being with the Jets. I have him being there until I have 2 seasons that he'll give the Jets, in my opinion, with an outside chance at 3. That's what I have. Now, the thing that I like, and we talk about what the Jets gave up. Now, if we look at the overall trade itself, and I want to get into this before we wrap things up here on Arson and Coke with my buddy Ross and myself, DT, on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. So as we look at this, the Jets-Packers trade that we saw here, I'm going to break down the trade because I've talked about this a little bit earlier. I want to talk about it again. So, because to me, I think that it's kind of clear cut what happened here and what I like about it. So when we look at the specifics of the trade and who won in this, to me it's clear, but let's look at it here. So the Green Bay Packers traded Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets. The Packers switched picks with the Jets. They gave up. So the Packers, they end up switching their picks. So they take the Jets' 13th overall pick in the first round, and they give up the 15th pick. So they swap picks. Now, the Jets also gave them a second-round pick in this year's draft at number 42, but the Jets, remember, had 42 and 43. And they get a sixth-round selection, 207, here. They get a conditional second-round choice in 2024, but it could be a first-rounder if things move forward. So when we look at what's going on here, so Green Bay, once again, Green Bay got the 13th overall pick, a number 42 pick in the second round of this draft, number 207 in the sixth round of this draft, and a conditional second round pick, which could become a first round pick in 2024.
Buddy, I think they said that if he plays only 65% of the snaps,
Then
Aaron
it's first.
Rodgers, then that becomes a first round pick. So, again, if he doesn't get injured and he plays most of the season, which I would hope for the Jets' sake, if they have any hopes of a championship,
That
he
he will.
plays at least 65% of the snaps, it's going to turn into a first round pick.
Right.
But if they're a great team, it's going to be a very low first round pick. It's going to be at the back end of the first round. It'd probably be like 28, 29. It would not be a top 5, top 10 pick as long as the Jets have a great season. It's not going to be anywhere near a top 10 pick if you have the season you hope for. And the Jets still get the number 15 pick. They basically, this year they're swapping first round picks and they're only 2 spots behind now. Instead of 13, they go to 15 tonight.
Yeah, and when you look at it, so again, breaking this down, brass tacks of it all, Green Bay Packers get the 13th pick this year, which is in the first round, second round pick, number 42 overall, sixth round pick, 207 overall, all this year, and next year, a second round pick in 2024 that could become a first round pick if Aaron Rodgers plays, like Ross said, at least 65% of the snaps, which we would intend that he does if he's healthy. On the other side of it, the Jets get quarterback Aaron Rodgers, Super Bowl champion and MVP. So they get Aaron Rodgers. They also get the number 15th overall pick this year and a fifth-round choice, number 170. So this is how I look at it. I don't see how the Packers, you get to pick. You still get to pick in the first and second round. That's great. But here's my thing: the Jets won this trade in more than Aaron Rodgers, and I'm going to tell you why. They get Aaron Rodgers, number 1. So you get one of the top-tier quarterbacks in the NFL in the top 5. Beyond that, you also don't trade out of the first round. So you drop from 13 to 15, which is virtually the same place. You're going to get some guy that you want to get. So you get 15.
That they didn't lose that first round pick. They just 2 spots back.
So you get the first round pick at 15. So you move from 13 to 15. You're still drafted in the first round. You had the 42 and 43 pick. You had back-to-back picks in the second round. You give up 42 knowing that you have 43. So you lose nothing in the second round. And you give up a sixth round, but you gain a fifth round pick. And like Ross said, that conditional pick next year, even if it's in the first round, it's going to be later on if the team does well. So I feel like they didn't just win when I'm talking about the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. They won in the draft pick side of things because you move from a sixth round pick to a fifth round pick this year. And you go from 13 to 15, you lose 42, but you still have 43. So they're picking in virtually the same spot in the first and second round. They didn't give up any draft capital in the first or second round of this year's draft, which typically you don't see something like that happen. So to move from 13 to 15 and to give up one of your back-to-back picks early on in the second round is nothing to me. They still have the draft capital. And normally when you trade for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, you lose a ton of your capital. Somehow the Jets were able to get Green Bay to agree to get rid of Aaron Rodgers and still draft in the first and second round and have high draft picks in both and lose no capital, in my opinion. So I don't know how the Jets lost anything in this. I'm looking at this thinking that this is a joke because you get 43, you lose 42, you get 15 after losing 13. What did they lose? To me, they didn't lose anything.
No, the only thing is you're gambling for it could be only 1 year, possibly just 2 years. I think the Packers, the only why they're willing to go as low as they did and didn't get as many picks as you would think they would get is because they're hoping, they're banking on Jordan Love will be the real deal. But remember, the Packers have been very lucky. The last almost 3 decades, they've had 2 first ballot Hall of Famers at quarterback who've each won a Super Bowl. But remember, they've only won 1 Super Bowl each, 2 overall in Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. You very rarely get back-to-back great quarterbacks in your franchise. It's hard to find, as a Jets fan, to find one dominant quarterback. They've had 2 superstar quarterbacks back-to-back in Favre and Rodgers. The chances that it's going to be 3 straight superstar quarterbacks and he's going to be there for the next decade, 15 years, it's not that high for Jordan Love. But But they probably hoping he's young. Hopefully he'll prove himself. He'll be decent. When he's gotten to play, he's done a decent job. And that also that the Packers basically had given up. They didn't give it up any hopes of wanting Rodgers. They were sick of Aaron Rodgers. Were giving them, kind of dangling the carrot, the bow, and say, I want to play. I don't want to play. I want to play. I don't want to play. He couldn't make up his mind. Just like Brett Favre did to them. As much as Aaron Rodgers says he doesn't want to be like Brett Favre and wouldn't be his own man, he very much was like that. The last few years, it was Willie won't they, like a meet cute in a romantic comedy. He didn't know if he wanted to come back. He didn't know if he wanted to retire. And then he kept saying, I need you to get more players. I need more money. They gave him the $50 million last year, and then it still was at the end of this season. I'm not sure if I want to come back. Then he even went to the Jets like Brett Favre did, so that's why, as a Jets fan, I'm just afraid he's going to leave after 1 year and go to the Vikings like Brett Favre did, or go to the 49ers, his childhood team in the Bay Area, who he still, maybe he wouldn't want to go there because maybe he's annoyed that they snubbed him and didn't draft him in the first round, and he slipped all the way in the back of that draft. In 2005, they drafted Alex Smith with their top pick, and instead the Packers were able to get a steal at Aaron Rodgers. They was able to sit on the bench for 3 years and watch Brett Favre and then prove he was a star quarterback. But I also don't think Zach Wilson's the same guy. I don't think Zach Wilson, who's already got a chance to play for 2 years, is going to sit behind Aaron Rodgers for a couple of years and imagine he'd be a superstar. I don't buy that. I think the reason why the Jets were able to, I think their general manager, Joe Douglas, was a smart GM, and it was a game of chicken. Basically, this deal was, I think, agreed upon basically 6 weeks ago. But then it was a fight over what draft compensation, how much are we willing to give you, when really the only person who was really after Aaron Rodgers, the only team, was the Jets. I know there was a little bit of threat that if this carried on longer, that maybe that childhood team, the 49ers, were desperate for a quarterback, with Brock Purdy out and Trey Lance maybe not being the real deal and being injured a lot. Maybe the 49ers would jump in and the Jets would do the ultimate Jets thing. They'd end up with nobody. They'd end up with Zach Wilson at quarterback again. There was a little bit of rumors about that. There was other reporters saying, maybe the 49ers would jump in until this got done. But remember, I always thought this was going to get done right before or right on draft night, because it ended up getting done on Monday of draft, 3 days before the draft, because you need these draft picks to count for this year, or else they're useless. Then you have to wait till next year. Same thing with Lamar Jackson, and you think he might get traded tonight or these next 3 days draft, because you want these draft picks to count for now. So that's the thing. As much as it'd be cool to get the Jets, if they would have gone after Lamar Jackson, he's only 26 years old. You have a guy who could be, if he's healthy, a star quarterback for a next decade plus. But you would have, they made it seem already, especially because he has the franchise tag on him, you'd probably have to give up at least 2, if not 3 or 4 future first-round picks, some of them this year, some in the future. With Aaron Rodgers, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to give up much draft capital, and the only main pick you're giving up, because it's 13 and 15 this year, which is virtually the same pick, is next year. But if you're good, that second-round pick being a first-round pick is going to not be a super high pick anyway. So the Jets, I think, were able to make out okay because Aaron Rodgers was older. Not many teams were going after him. Basically, the Jets were the only show in town. And the Packers had basically already been sick and tired of Aaron Rodgers' head games, his Jedi mind trick Yoda games. They were done. They wanted to move on to see what Jordan Love could do before eventually they're going to have to decide whether to keep Jordan Love, sign an extension, or let him go, because he's been there for a while now. You have to see if he can play or not. So I think the Packers wanted Jordan Love to get the chance. They were sick of Aaron Rodgers. They don't want to have to pay him that money. Now that's on Woody Johnson, the very rich owner of the New York Jets. Basically, he's so desperate, he's going after a 40-year-old quarterback and willing to pay him $50 million a year, the hopes that he's going to be able to help bring you a championship. And if they win a championship or they compete for a championship for these next 2 years and then he leaves, then I guess it's worth it. Because as a Jets fan, long-suffering Jets fan, I'm so used to losing and being disgusted year after year. We're usually out of the playoffs by the first month. You take what you can get. But if we were a healthy franchise, we would have gotten right one of our top draft pick quarterbacks these last few years. We would have gotten right on Sam Darnold or Zach Wilson. We did not. So this basically is admitted you failed on picking a quarterback in the draft. You're going to have to eventually pick a quarterback in the draft into your future or get another older, aged veteran quarterback in a few years. But for now, for these next couple of years, it makes us relevant. It makes us a contender. And for the Jets who are not used to that, are used to losing, it's worth it because you're so desperate to compete, you'll do whatever it takes. And at least you didn't get hosed off the draft picks. The Packers, they got to hope Jordan Love's the real deal, because if not, it's going to look bad, because I know Aaron Rodgers was near the end of his career, but you go from Favre to Rodgers, and if the next guy is a big decline, and I'm not saying that he has to be a Hall of Famer, but you go from 2 superstar, legendary, possibly top 10, top 20 quarterbacks of all time, and if Jordan Love's an embarrassment, that's going to look bad on the Packers. And the Packers, who've been relevant for years, they might not be relevant in the near future because they might not be able to get top free agents to come there to Titletown. It's been such a legendary franchise with Vince Lombardi, but they went a long time after winning those first 2 Super Bowls. The Packers went a long time without winning a Super Bowl until Brett Favre got there almost 30 years later. So if you want to stay relevant, you have to hope Jordan Love's the real deal. And Aaron Rodgers now, with him gone, they lose some of that relevancy. The Packers, they'll always be a legendary franchise, but they could turn into a laughingstock franchise if they start to lose and not compete for playoffs. And they're probably not going to compete for a championship anytime soon with Jordan Love at quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, at least for the Jets, he gives you a chance to compete for 1 to 2 years, and then you're back to square one, because then you have to hope that the Jets will be a very attractive destination someone will come to if they win. If not, it's going to be the same old stinky Jets and back to winning 4 games a year, put a trash bag over my head, and being embarrassed to admit that I'm a Jets fan.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're in a place right now where the New York Jets are built to win now. And I had made the statement of the fact that because they've drafted well in the last couple of years, all these contracts that are coming up don't come up until 2025, but a bunch of them in 2026 and 2027. So by the time that Aaron Rodgers is done, they'll be negotiating with Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson and guys, and Jermaine Johnson II and guys like that. So and Breece Hall.
You better win these 2 years with Aaron Rodgers, because you're not going to afford to keep them all, and you don't know who your quarterback will be then, if he'll be decent at all. So it's, as you said, it's win now, because right now you're playing with cheap rookie contracts, and you need to be able to win with that with Rodgers taking most of your money.
The good part of it is when Rodgers is gone, then hopefully it'll work out for them financially, that they can figure out what to do from there and be able to keep the guys that they want to keep. So, that it's a perfect positioning of good young talent that could be great young talent with Aaron Rodgers at 39 years old, and to try this out for the next couple of years and to not have to worry about signing Sauce Gardner, signing Garrett Wilson, signing Breece Hall, signing Jermaine Johnson II. You're not worried about any of those things in the here and now. You can think about those down in 2027, when Rodgers will be long gone and probably retired from the NFL, which is a good thing for the Jets. So they keep draft capital in the first and second round. They get Aaron Rodgers, and their contracts make for right now them being able to have Aaron and not have to worry about keeping him but letting go of somebody else, or vice versa. So I think the Jets pulled the ultimate coup. If it all works out monetarily and timing-wise, it's perfect. And I like it. A quick note here, and Ross brought it up because I've been saying it on the show, and I just tweeted it out to people that haven't heard it on the show yet. But don't be surprised if Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson is traded tonight on draft night for the number 2 or number 4 overall pick, the number 2 pick belonging to the Houston Texans for now. And the number.
I've heard is the Houston Texans. I don't know if I buy into that, but the Houston Texans could be an intriguing possibility.
Yeah.
If they're desperate for a quarterback and aren't married or committed to any of the star young quarterbacks tonight, like Bryce Young or Stroud or any of those star quarterbacks, if they maybe want a more proven commodity, you just have to run the risk that he's been injured and he's missed big chunks in the second half of the last 2 years and couldn't even come back to the playoffs. But maybe a team like the Texans, desperate after losing Deshaun Watson a couple years ago, maybe they would go after and pay all that draft capital and give the money and guaranteed money that Lamar Jackson wants.
Yeah, so I mean, I think number 2 overall or number 4, we would be looking at this situation, in my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion on it, that there is an opportunity for the Ravens to, and if I were the Ravens, I would be making phone calls and getting into the head of the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts, get them to just think about it and be a little bit sweaty here on draft night, because Houston should think about it. You could say to Houston, hey, do you want to take C.J. Stroud? Do you want to roll the dice on C.J. or Anthony Richardson? Or do you want a surefire guy who's been to the playoffs and changed our franchise for the better?
Just signed Odell Beckham Jr., who's coming off ACL injuries. He's had 2 of them the last few years, and they gave him $18 million guaranteed. I think it's $15 million guaranteed. Could be up to $18 million this season. Yeah. I think he thinks he's going to play with Lamar Jackson, a star quarterback, but they've already signed him. He's going to be on the team this year, Odell Beckham Jr. Imagine if they did all that, and now they get rid of Lamar Jackson, who doesn't want to sign that franchise tag, and now maybe a young rookie quarterback who's inexperienced is going to have a lot of pressure on him. He has a star receiver, but a guy who's older, coming off injuries. Will they mesh? Will there be good chemistry with a young rookie quarterback with Odell Beckham Jr.? Will he be able to have the patience to have a young quarterback to watch him build up confidence, or will he be annoyed that he came there on the false pretense that Lamar Jackson has gone?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I think Odell's waited a couple of years now just to get a contract. So the fact that, he has one that looks somewhat enticing, $15 million no matter what he does. Some people won't see $1 million in a lifetime. He gets to see 15 of those in less than a calendar year. So, that would make sense. Also, some people thinking that DeAndre Hopkins could be traded to the Ravens. I think if DeAndre is traded to the Ravens, so the crazy thing about the worlds of the Ravens is that they traded last year on draft night, they traded Hollywood Brown to the Cardinals. So if DeAndre gets traded from the Cardinals to the Ravens, then that would be a really weird thing, especially if it happened on draft night. If DeAndre's there and Odell's there and Rashad Bateman, there's no doubt who's under a rookie contract. There's no doubt in my mind Lamar's staying. So if that happens tonight, it's a done deal because they're not going to all.
To be true, I know maybe they might not have a hard time agreeing on the guaranteed money, but you would think that would sweeten the pot that he's finally have big-time offensive weapons in Baltimore, something he's never really had in his career.
Well, Baltimore, and they would say to him flat out, if you can't win this way, we don't want you. So, I think, but you have to look at if he is to be traded, and it's something I brought up for the last few weeks now, if Lamar Jackson were to be traded, out of the top 10, number 2 and number 4 make the most sense to me, and I'm going to tell you why. The Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts both have new coaches. Those new coaches want to make their own splash. They want to put their own stamp on it, right? You come in as a new coach, Davis Mills wasn't your guy. You come as a new coach, with the Colts, they've had 5 billion different quarterbacks since Andrew Luck had an untimely departure to retire at 29 years old. So these are two teams with coaches that are looking to make a big move, that want to make themselves be known. And not that it's going to be purely their decision or their decision at all, the general manager and everybody's got to sit down on this. But these are coaches that are taking over a franchise, 2 franchises that have been dismal and down in the AFC South. So that would make sense to make a splash. And the thing is, if they're both in the market for a quarterback, like I said, if I do nothing less than at least shake them up a little bit and get in their head, if I'm the Baltimore Ravens, I'm calling them saying, I have Lamar. Lamar's played multiple years. Lamar's made it to the playoffs. We changed our whole system to fit around Lamar. This is a generational guy, that can do this for you. I'm not saying that I necessarily agree that he's a generational guy, but I'm saying what the conversation could be. You call Houston and say, do you want to roll the dice on C.J. Stroud? Do you want to keep Davis Mills? Do you want to go get Anthony Richardson? You call up Indy, Will Levis, wow, he's not consistent. Do you want to go get Anthony Richardson? He looks good, but he didn't look great when he was with the Florida Gators, and that team couldn't even make it to a bowl game. So if we're having these conversations, which they should be, the Houston or Indy taking Lamar Jackson.
It's got to be. Calls have to be burdened up until their draft picks are made.
Because it makes perfect sense. It makes more sense to take Lamar than to draft a quarterback. And that would put Baltimore in a situation to trade up to 2 or 4, which I would imagine they would take Anthony Richardson, because you're not going to redo your entire offense that was built for this guy. Like, obviously, John Harbaugh and the staff believes that they should build around Lamar. You bring in Anthony, you can plug and play him right in. They've done that with all 3 strings of their quarterbacks. They've gotten guys that look like each other. They run the ball and they throw the ball. Huntley did a pretty good job last year.
He's a better version than Huntley, because Huntley was decent, but their offense, their scoring offense went way down. I think when they lost Lamar Jackson, they went from scoring at least averaging about 20 points a game to down to 10 points a game. So as good as their defense and their running game was, losing 10 points a game was enough where they were able to find a way to sneak into the playoffs. They weren't able to do anything in the playoffs. They gave the Bengals a scare that first round until that fumble was returned for the touchdown for almost 100 yards. But the Ravens, without Lamar Jackson and without a top-tier quarterback, they're not going anywhere. They're competitive. They're good. They have all these parts on defense and offensively. They have a star tight end as well in Mark Andrews. But you saw a big difference. Huntley was serviceable. He was not Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson definitely put them over the top as made them a contender. Huntley, they were very average offensively. They need to help that anemic offense. They're either going to need to keep Lamar Jackson or draft, hopefully, a guy who will replace him and be a top-tier quarterback.
Yeah, and so to me, it's you brought in RG3 at a time, you brought in Tyler Huntley, you brought in a bunch of guys that are going to be a similar talent set as Lamar. Not as good as Lamar, but a similar talent set as Lamar Jackson. And so now it makes sense to get a more powerful arm, arguably, and bring in Anthony Richardson. I believe this trade could happen. It could happen tonight. We're going to know within the first 4 picks if it does. And I think that it's a great plug for Baltimore to make a phone call to Houston or Indy and say, hey, listen, we can give you a guy who's been in the NFL as opposed to you hoping to swing and not miss. Let us swing and miss. You don't have to worry about it. And it also ends that very nasty divorce, whatever this marriage divorce thing is or isn't with Lamar Jackson that seems to have gone stale.
They don't want to give him all the guaranteed money he wants, and then Lamar Jackson doesn't have a regular agent. He has his mom negotiating, which is a little bit of a weird situation.
But Michael Jordan did that with his mom.
Yeah, and it's messy, and I don't think that he's good. I don't think they're going to give into his guaranteed money demands. I don't think he wants to sign that franchise tender and play on that injured knee and coming off those injuries and risk that he can get hurt, even get paid a lot of money for 1 year. I don't think he wants to risk blowing out his knee and be worth nothing next year. I think he wants a long-term deal, whether it's with Baltimore or somewhere else. I don't think he's going to sign that franchise tag. It's either going to be a long-term deal with the Ravens or a long-term deal wherever he gets traded to. That'd be my prediction.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to play on the franchise tag either because, God forbid, he gets hurt again and something happens. His stock's going to go way down and teams might not want to take him at all. Now, all of a sudden, he's a forgotten man. So I understand where he's coming from, and I hope they get it figured out. Deshaun Watson broke this whole thing. He dismantled what it was supposed to be when he's the only player in NFL history to get a fully guaranteed contract.
Scandals of Deshaun Watson, with the year suspension, all the bad things he was alleged to do, and he still all that guaranteed money because Cleveland Browns were that desperate they offered him all that money.
Right, and it didn't make any sense. And he's not the guy that you give a guaranteed contract to like that. So now Lamar's got to ask for more than $230, and that's just the reality of it all. And they might want to be somewhere at $200. But, if you're going to be at $200, give me $175 guaranteed or somewhere around that region. Give me some incentives and some things to do. How about this? If I stay healthy, there's this incentive. If I bring you to the playoffs and I'm still playing, there's this incentive. So I can make over $200 if I stay healthy, because then it puts it on Lamar, but he can still get the money. But then it also gives a safety blanket to the Baltimore Ravens. Maybe I should be the one negotiating because I just figured that out in 2 seconds pretty quickly. But Ross, as always, I appreciate you, brother. I hope you enjoy draft night. I hope you watch tonight as we do our mock draft 2.0 leading into the draft. And I look forward to talking with you soon and seeing where things go. I always love draft night. It's like another holiday for me.
Yes, I will definitely be watching your show, your coverage. I'm an NFL draft junkie. I also will be watching one of our favorite Kevin Costner movies, Draft Day. I will definitely be watching that. Remember, it was Vontae Mack, no matter what, by the late great Chadwick Boseman. Kevin Costner, that movie. I put the post up on Facebook already and Twitter. I love Draft Day movie. I'm going to watch that movie to get all jacked up for tonight's NFL draft. A great movie. The greatest fake GM and draft night in Cleveland Browns history. They traded all their picks for the number 1 pick. Then they got all their picks back, and they became a superstar team. And Bryce Drew, who looked like Derek Carr, want to be out there. So watch that movie. They got their Vontae back, no matter what, and it's a heck of a movie. So Dennis Leary, a bunch of fames. Terry Crews is in it. So Draft Day, watch the movie. Watch your coverage, buddy, because it's amazing. And I can't wait for first round tonight, rounds 2 and 3 on Friday night, and then Saturday, rounds 4 through 7, and find out who Mr. Irrelevant is. Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant, and he became a pretty heck of a good quarterback. So thanks for having me on, buddy, and enjoy draft, all the drafts coverage. Enjoy draft night, and I love you, buddy. Thanks for having me on it once again. And one more time, Jamie! J-E-G-S, Jets. Bye-bye.
Take care. Love you too, buddy. I'll talk with you soon. Be well. That coming from Ross Turetsky here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. I was waiting for him to do Jamie. He did the Jets in the place of it today. So we'll take a step aside for our final fast break. We'll wrap up the show right after this. I think it makes perfect sense for them to trade Lamar Jackson. We'll see what they do.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
This is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? This is a special message from Merritt Brady, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Watertown on 1290 Arsenal Street in Watertown, New York.
Chick-fil-A for me has always been about the people. I think it starts with the strength and leadership of the Cathy family. It's just amazing to see a family-run business reach the altitude that they have. Second mile service is something that we embodied at my previous business, and the ability to make people feel like they're the only person at your establishment, that you are there to serve them that day and looking for those extra ways to make them happy, to anticipate what they need next is what makes me tick. And I'm going to have so many opportunities at Chick-fil-A to do that. It's one of my favorite things to eat in the world. My favorite application question or interview question when I'm interviewing is when I get to, have you ever eaten at Chick-fil-A? And a smile hits both their ears. You know, they can't even answer the question for a second. And when I see that, it's like, man, that's going to be a great hire. They already get it. They already feel it. They already know that we're different. The Chick-fil-A experience, it's a real thing. And then, of course, just our generosity and community involvement and making a positive impact in the lives of our team members, our guests, and the community in general, I think is really the secret sauce.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Truly fast breaks that you have right there where sports meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And appreciate your patience this morning as I found out some news about Papa Joe unfortunately being in a car accident. And your continued prayers are much appreciated for him and for Bruce and for everybody involved, that everybody comes home safe and sound, heals completely and for good by the grace of God, heals no matter what through God, and handles well whatever comes our way. So continue prayers for PJ, Bruce, and everyone involved and all of their loved ones, and of course for everybody that needs a prayer, including you today and all your loved ones. So God bless to y'all. YouTube.com, Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT. You'll find us Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on there, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com for live internet streaming radio during the same time. Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, MixLR, Player FM, Podbean, Podvine, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, all different places, including more, to find Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We're very hard to miss. Search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT, any day of the week, and you'll find us there. Big thanks to our incredible partners, Cafe Cabal, Carvel DeWitt, Wildcat Sports Pub, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, PB&J's Lunchbox, Chick-fil-A Watertown, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, 317 at Montgomery Street, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Great Lakes Honda City, Mother's Cupboard, Avicoli's, Pizza Man, and of course, we're proud to be the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It's Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call. First and third Wednesday of each month at 9 a.m. Eastern Time during Dolphin Time. We bring you AD and DT with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora. Make sure you stay tuned, as we will have an all-new AD and DT that you do not want to miss a second of. I promise you. That'll be coming up this week, so definitely don't miss any of that as it comes up here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. AD and DT the first and third Wednesday of each month. So excited to bring you that, and so much looking forward to AD and DT with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora. Coming up every second and fourth Wednesday, the Dolphin Dive, diving into the stories of student athletes, coaches, administration, as well as future Dolphins and alumni. That happens on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every second and fourth Wednesday of each month, so don't miss out on that at 9 a.m. Eastern Time as well. So a lot of great stuff coming up where sports meets life. You can check out all of our Dolphin content as it continues to be uploaded and saved to the Lemoyne page on wakeupcalldt.com. And of course, you can go and subscribe to our YouTube channel for all of our Dolphin content, and that's on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. As always, fins up, and make sure that you find everything you need with the Dolphins on our wonderful channels, and you can also get more information by going to LeMoyneDolphins.com. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse. The Bobcats come to you every single month with the Bobcat Buzz. The Bobcat Buzz featuring student athletes and coaches, as well as administration, when it comes to telling the stories of these Bobcats, the men's and women's soccer teams, as well as the men's and women's basketball teams, and the inaugural baseball season, which is currently going on right now. So a lot of great stuff coming up here with the Bobcats, and you don't want to miss a moment of any of it. We appreciate you so much for tuning in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and you can get all of our Dolphin content, or pardon me, all of our Bobcat content. We have the Bobcats and the Dolphins. You get all of our Bobcat content by going to the BSC Syracuse tab on wakeupcalldt.com and by subscribing to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. For more information on your Bobcats, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com. And as always, go Bobcats. Here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, we appreciate you tuning in today. I put a bunch of polls up on Twitter. I do this all the time. A lot of times weekly, we put these out here for you. So make sure you check them out every single month and throughout the weeks. I just put up 4. Is it 4 or 3? I put up 3 polls this morning. And so you've already started voting in a massive way. Thank you so much for the people that have started voting. I said, feet to the fire. Where do you see wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins being traded to? The Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens, or somewhere else? 29.6% of you said Buffalo. 21% said Kansas City. 3.7% said somewhere else. And 45.7% believe that DeAndre will be heading to Baltimore, which, if that happens, Lamar's not going anywhere, in my opinion. The Arizona Cardinals, so then I asked you this. Arizona Cardinals wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins gets traded to the Buffalo Bills tonight on the first day of the NFL draft. Agree or disagree? 60.5% of you agree. 39.5% of you disagree. And then I wrote, are you buying into the hype that the New York Jets will go to the Super Bowl in quarterback Aaron Rodgers' first season with the team? 60% of you said, no, I'm not buying the hype of Aaron Rodgers and the Jets to the Super Bowl in year one. 40% of you said yes. So that's getting a lot closer than how it started out, which was 100% no. So make sure you vote in those polls on Twitter at CallDT. And while you're there, click follow. That's at CALLDT. Look forward to seeing you there, as well as seeing you tonight at Pizza Man as we continue the draft conversation. Al Romano and I will be bringing you our mock draft into like playing right into the draft. We start at 6:30 tonight at Pizza Man. Thursday, April 27th, today, at 6:30 p.m. We'll be on the stage at Pizza Man Pub, 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville, New York. Pizza and wings galore. Having a great time talking with you starting at 6:30. The draft starts at 8. So we will bring you all the way into the draft and have some fun. Couldn't help myself. I had to keep playing the music. So the mock draft continues tonight, and I can't wait to see you there at Pizza Man Pub. Come and support local. Come watch the show. Get some great food and drinks. As always, drink responsibly, and allow Al and I to bring you firmly into the NFL draft, which happens tonight starting at 8 p.m., and our show starts at 6:30. Can't wait to have you there. Can't wait to see you. And if you're out of town, you can go to any one of our channels that you're on right now, and you can watch tonight at 6:30 p.m. to our draft, our live draft show leading into the NFL draft on youtube.com and facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. We look forward to seeing you there and seeing you 24/7 on Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, Twitter at CallDT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. In the meantime, a big thanks and a big shout out to Ross Turetsky, one of my best friends in the world, for joining me here today, and a shout out to you for watching and listening. Prayers continue for Papa Joe, Bruce, and everybody involved and all their loved ones, and continued prayers for you, and God bless us all. I hope you have a fantastic day. I send you all my love, and as always, God bless. No stress.